There's my recording evidence of the NK Ultra. Turn this off. By 23rd. December 2021 audio recording. You're not meant to be in my sleep, is it? Why do I hear people in my room? Why do I hear physical assaults in audio? The file is quite big. "5 AM, eventually got to sleep and I woke up about 11:30 AM. And this is an audio evidence recording. I'm breathing normal, but it's like someone's taken over. It's just really weird. There's extra noise. I'm meant to be sleeping. That's not my movement. It's like I'm being assaulted when I'm asleep. So what demons are getting into my bloody well? I'm not an expert in how this targeting and technology works. MK Ultra on top. See how that camera got to put a thing over. That's meant to be me sleeping, isn't it? It's like I'm being physically assaulted. The frequencies are high. Look at Mind Control, NK Ultra. Educate yourself.org. Yeah, you see, put that back on as my son. takes my granddaughter out for Christmas environment. He psychologically does the gaslighting, and he posts pictures of my granddaughter, what he's meant to have sent to me privately, and he posts it on his Twitter account. But this mind control is affecting everyone now. And he says to me, he doesn't post it on, because this is how you're getting hacked into. He's not posting it on the main WhatsApp, because he was used on the 22nd of the 3rd, 2021 at 9:30 AM. I've still got the evidence how he could change his phone number. But I'm getting hacked bad anyway. So and this everything I use gets bloody hacked. Even they hacking into my phone. It's ridiculous. It doesn't take it long to do the powers that be monitor what you say or not say. So let's just look at the hidden matrix explained. Transhumanist message explained. Go and check out that as well.
Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we are going to give a spoiler-filled, let me repeat that, spoiler-filled review of Matrix Resurrections, because the overwhelming message of the film is that not...
No, that's not what I thought it was related to. That's another chat.
Now people are fucking seeing you in the grave.
We're checking out most playlists. Another target individual. Don't forget that Christmas is pagan. Okay, so let's look at the faith of the end times. Introduction to remote neuromonitoring EMF for beginners.
Morning, boss. This is my office. From here...
Yeah, man. I want to do a video.
Satellite harassment as well.
Are appliances, like bulbs and TVs flickering, microwave hearing, also known as voice to skull, V2K, which includes being forced to listen to audio harassment or voices, symptoms that mimics and appear to be mental illness, but is not mental illness. Persistent loud ringing in the ears, what is known as silent sound, fake tinnitus. This is common and frequently reported by targets and victims of organized stalking. Hearing tones, or tone bursts in the ears that may last anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds, that may change in volume and pitch. Transmission of specific commands into the subconscious mind. Visual disturbances, visual hallucinations. Injection of words, numbers or information into brain via electromagnetic radiation or radio waves, or by the remote neural monitoring satellite technology. Being touched or tapped or hit by an invisible force, or having parts of your body suddenly moved, causing pain to any nerve of the body or to the body using directed energy from the remote neural monitoring satellite tech.
Sometimes I dream of living forever.
It says about the organised stalking and technical torture. DARPA advisor reveals consciousness AI computers 2 years ago.
I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, not a month goes by where I don't get a call at my institute by someone telling me that someone in the government implanted these things in their brain without them knowing. I'm not kidding.
Now you may say, this doesn't concern me, or my children, or my community. But this is less and less true.
Once we let the proverbial cat out of the bag, well, at that point, now we let loose science and technology in the broader public sphere. And this thing gets us into the actually derivative social issues.
We've advised the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, which sounds very...
7 months ago.
Quantum computing is straight out of the pit of hell.
The attitude of wanting to foster connectivity of all sentient beings is quite important. If we can get that attitude into our super AIs, we're going to be a lot better off.
Because quantum computing is causing AI, and AI means that it's going to surpass humanity, and that means that humanity is going to have to transmute into transhumanism and posthumanism. It basically means it's the end of humanity, and humanity is God's creation. So therefore, if something then changes God's creation, it's therefore bad, the end of humanity, and that is the apocalypse. So that's why AI, there is an argument to see why AI is bad.
By their own admissions, they communicate with parallel dimensions. With the 2,000 qubit computer, they are communicating by their own statements to over 2,000 of parallel dimensions. They're not parallel dimensions, those are entities. Those are spirits. This is interdimensional communication. How can I say that and say it succinctly? Geomancy.
Anthony Patch is a conservative Christian. He's the only person that I know that's actually talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and quantum mechanics, and linking spirituality, mysticism, and the occult all together. Talk about the spirituality. The spiritual people, they don't have enough understanding of the science to talk about it. But cybernetic dimension. These could be interpreted as nihilistic because they don't believe in the soul as such. If you believe you have the spirit and you have the soul, and these two get very confused, they get
Awaken World UK joined.
Language in English doesn't really deal with metaphysics. If you want a language that deals with metaphysics, go and speak Hindi. Our language deals with commerce and business. So the language of English doesn't really separate these two, and there's a lot of problems in differentiations between them. If you wanted to have a very basic idea, the soul could be the part of God, and then the soul is the interface between God and this reality, and that is our personality, if you like, at a very basic level. The spirit, according to science, doesn't exist, or the spirit and the soul are the same thing. But that spirit soul has nothing to do with God. It's just the interface between us and reality. And if you can hack that and copy it, you can then upload that to a computer, which means you have immortality. For some people, thinking that the soul or spirit, some sort of piece of divinity from God, does not exist, that could be seen as nihilism. Nihilism is the absence of God. So you're actually saying that I am not God, I am just algorithms. Nihilism is the basis, you might be able to argue, for evil. If you look at the Gnostics and the Demiurge, you could look at it as an aberration of God, nothingness. And nihilism is the foundation for Satanism, and Satanism includes such things like paedophilia, ritual child abuse, and sacrifice. Satanism has had its roots throughout history, and it morphs into different cult practices. And the modern cult practice that we know of is given its manifestation through Christianity, because Christianity has conceived of this entity called Satan or the devil, and that is then labeled as the facade or the face or the mask of nihilism. Because of this scientific ideology, it can excuse ethics, because I mean, if ethics are related to God or divinity, and there is no God or divinity, then, you know, do ethics actually exist? Are they a modern construction, something that's subjective? Because remember, the Christian and the religions are talking about an objective truth, and the scientist is now talking perhaps about a subjective truth, because it's not coming from outside of the human; it's coming from the human. It's an anthropomorphic ideology, and if you compare anthropos to theos, then the anthropos is subjective and the God is going to be objective, and that would bring in your a priori and your a priori arguments of subjective and objective truths designed by Kant. This way of thinking might be a little bit dangerous, because if you do not believe in supernatural entities, then you wouldn't believe that there is a war going on between good and bad, which is what a Christian ideology thinks of. And there are other ideologies outside of the Christian Abrahamic religions that also think that there is some sort of war going on, some sort of astral war. Now, if you don't believe that the enemy actually exists, if the enemy is invisible and it attacks you, then you're going to think that perhaps that attacking might be your own thoughts, because if an enemy, an interdimensional entity, doesn't work physically, it works mentally, and it changes your mentality and it changes your psychology and it implants thoughts into your head, then those thoughts you are going to think are your thoughts, when actually they're an external type of thoughts. And that's how an interdimensional attack might work, and that's actually given to things such as vice and anger and stealing, that these behaviors are not actually human behaviors. These are actually external, extraterrestrial, or interdimensional behaviors, and humanity has a job to solidify his humanity by defending and pushing away these outside ideologies, which are there to try to turn him or to make him sin. Now, quantum computers don't work in this dimension, they work in other dimensions. They might work up to, I think it's 250 or 2,500, or quite a large amount of dimensions. And what they do is they go into those dimensions at a nuclear level and at an atomic level, and they pick up information from those different realities. That information is called resource or resources. So the head of D-Wave, he came up with this word resource, that these machines collect resources. Now, if you have a machine that goes into another dimension, that machine becomes a psychopomp, because it allows itself to communicate with that dimension and this dimension. It's a bridge, a pontifex. Pontifex is a priest. Priest, pontifex, bridge. Psychopomp, something that can go from one world to another. So now we're seeing that we're developing tools or machinery through technology that can actually start taking the place of priests or shamans. When you bring an entity from another dimension into this dimension, for instance, a priest in a Catholic mass, he's invoking the Holy Spirit to create transubstantiation. Transubstantiation is a metaphysical change where you change bread into Jesus and wine into blood. Now, if a priest can make a metaphysical change, then if a priest can make a metaphysical change by invoking the Holy Spirit, then if we as humans build machines, quantum machines, that can go into different realities, open portals like the priest, and bring through resources, which is information. Information is energy. Then what else are we bringing through at the same time? Because the priest, as he opens up portals for the Holy Spirit to enter, to make transubstantiation possible, the Holy Spirit is making energetical changes, because everything's to do with energy, everything's to do with atoms. So on a physical and a metaphysical level, change would occur by energetical changes. Information, energy is information. So what the computer is doing and what the priest is doing is essentially the same thing. But take this for an example. If you were to go into another dimension, and then you were in that dimension, you have, let's say, go into a prison. And in that prison, you open a door and you collect a bit of information from a prisoner's desk, and you bring it back to your own dimension. Whilst you go into the prison and open the door to collect that information, you might actually allow the prisoner to escape from the prison and perhaps to follow you. And this is what Anthony Patch is saying. He's saying that we have to be careful about the spiritual, metaphysical, and occult implications of creating machines that can go into parallel universes, which are what the makers have said. For instance, the CEO of D-Wave. D-Wave is the company which is a company in Canada which has created these interdimensional machines. And they're actually talking about parallel universes, how they're going into different realities and bringing things back. So no one else is talking about this. The scientists don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be rebuked by their own peers and made to look stupid. And the scientists and the religious people don't talk about it because the religious people don't want to scare the people, and they don't have the acumen really to talk about occult or metaphysics. And the people don't really want to hear about it because they get scared, and the priest doesn't want to lose the people at mass. So you get, and the other people don't believe in what's going on is happening. So you get a void of people having this discussion. And Anthony Patch has managed to combine these two areas together in a conservative Christian cosmovision perspective. During the Enlightenment, which is when church and science separated from each other, the reason why it separated is because the church was interfering in science. The church wanted to have objective truth, and the Pope was saying that he was writing whatever he wanted, to such an extent that he was saying that it wasn't the earth going around the sun, but it was the sun that was going around the earth. And all the scientists were sort of crossing their fingers and saying, well, what do we do? Because if we actually tell the truth, then we can get killed. So truth was being suppressed, and the Catholic Church was saying that it was the truth, but it was giving out a false truth. So what happened is that you had a separation. Science basically said we no longer want to be attached to religion, which was extremely upsetting. Religion is the vehicle which holds spirituality. Spirituality and science were always linked, and that was called mysticism. Now, the early scientists were alchemists. And the alchemy was when you took spirituality and you took science and you tried to combine it together. Alchemy is the grandfather, the basis and the foundation of modern science. But modern science doesn't want anyone to know that because it doesn't want to have mysticism and occultism in its purified, rational thought system. But it did exist, even though science has got problems with some of the experiments, because when you look at an experiment with an intention of what you think the outcome will be, somehow your mind manages to make that outcome happen and interfere in the experiment, which is why you need a double blind. The other problem is with quantum physics is that when you're trying to measure waves or particles, when you measure light behaves like a wave and a particle at the same time. Depending on how you observe the light, your consciousness seems, or the experiment seems, to have a connection that influences the behavior of light, therefore manifesting it as a wave or a particle.
Consciousness, awareness is the ground. That's the base of which everything is formed. And then different structures manifest consciousness in different ways. So a human brain manifests universal consciousness in one way, and this coin manifests universal consciousness in a different way. So from that point of view, the question isn't which systems are conscious. The question is what kind of consciousness each system demonstrates, how it manifests universal consciousness.
Our minds, which are conscious, are having an effect on reality. And because science can't explain that, it doesn't want to talk about it. Isaac Newton wasn't a scientist. Isaac Newton was an occultist. 2/3 or a third of his library were on occult books, not science. He did science as a day job. After the Enlightenment, a lot of scientists still remained mystics. They never wanted to separate mysticism and science. But as we went through our rational humanistic phase, the scientists started to dissociate themselves with mysticism. And so you end up with the nihilistic scientist. And a nihilistic scientist is very dangerous. Although a scientist may be able to understand God through mathematics, apparently a lot of people that go on to study maths, pure maths and further maths have a propensity to go on and study things like theology afterwards. You may be able to understand the universe through mathematics, but generally speaking, when you go and speak to scientists, they tend to have a very unmystical view of the world.
With AI programmers and AI scientists, most of them are fairly materialist in their outlook. Most of them feel strongly that human consciousness comes about as a consequence of certain complex structures in the human brain.
The scientist, instead of playing alchemist, is now playing quantum mechanic, which is just basically the same thing. I mean, an alchemist is somebody that deals with opening up other worlds to get information, and the quantum mechanic is opening up different parallel universes to get resources that come through. So the priest, the alchemist, and the quantum mechanic, they're all the same thing with different names. Instead of using prayer, use a computer system. If we live in a matrix and the other dimensions like heaven are matrices as well, then they have to depend on a science. And if the science is thought-based science, or thought-based technology, so you think something and then that can appear because those are the rules of the matrix which have been designed by the architects, then what you could be saying is through prayer, your ability to access that technology is how the scientist priest works. Whereas in this dimension, the scientist is using his understanding of science to open up portals and manage the artificial intelligence here. The information that you get through quantum mechanics from different worlds is the same type of information, you might say, which is coming from the use of occult or prayer from other worlds. The difference, the Christian perspective is that the only information that you can get has to come through Christianity. And anything outside of Christianity is wrong. However, if you look at Buddhism and Hinduism, the meditational practices also hope to transcend the material world to accept information and insight into your own consciousness to make you a better person. So with Anthony Patch is a conservative Christian, and that's his cosmovision. But through his understanding of Christianity and his ability to read the Bible and science, he's coming up with some amazing ideas. The conservative Christian believes the activity of getting information from other worlds is bad, except if it comes through God or Jesus. The shaman believes that getting information coming from the other worlds is good if you manage to use that for healing wisdom, and you manage to apply that to help humanity. The scientist doesn't believe you can get information from a supernatural world, and because he's not really believing in God, therefore he's indifferent, and therefore he's nihilistic, and that he's the most dangerous one of them all. So in a very strange way, the computer is now becoming a witch, a medium, even a clairvoyant, because it's managing to make predictions about the future. And what the ironic thing is, the computer with quantum mechanics is probably going to be able to make much better and accurate forecasts of the future than a witch or a medium or a clairvoyant. Now, this is called geomancy. And although it's okay to occult practitioners, and other Eastern religions, it's not okay for Abrahamic religions. If getting information from other worlds is against a God, it's forbidden knowledge, we need to look actually what forbidden knowledge actually is. There are different ways that you could have a look at forbidden knowledge. If you get the knowledge to use as something which is bad, to do something which is bad, or it could be knowledge which humans are not ready for, or it could be knowledge which is gotten through ill intentions. Now, if forbidden knowledge is something which is gotten through ill intentions, then the knowledge that we're getting from these parallel universes in quantum mechanics is just that. Because AI and data, information and processing. So what we're doing is that we're getting knowledge from using an interdimensional source. And I don't know what the spiritual implication of that actually is. And I don't know what the pollution, the quantum pollution is, because quantum pollution is something else that you need to have a look at. There is a quantum pollution website, and it says Google is already producing quantum pollution every time it runs its quantum algorithms for NSA on the D-Wave quantum computer. The CEO of D-Wave was the one that talked about the information coming from parallel universes called resource. It then says irreparable damage is being done to the 510 parallel universes. So that's an incredible amount of universes that are being accessed. If our intention is to do bad things, then how we get the information is sullied. If our intention is to do good things, then perhaps that information is not solid. And then the pollution that we're causing in other universes, that has a spiritual or energetical link, because consciousness and actions are all interrelated and linked. So if you're going to start dealing with parallel universes and you're going to start putting your consciousness into those parallel universes by the search of data, and that data is coming from vices and things that aren't good, which are negative, and that negativity, according to the law of attraction, is going to attract other negative energies. And those portals which you're opening may or may not be able to bring interdimensional entities into this dimension. You're heading for a problem, a very large problem. And so if the metaphysics is correct, then there are no metaphysicians which are talking about these metaphysical, spiritual, and energetical problems which are happening. So if AI is something to do with the mark of the beast, then one of the problems that it might be doing is inviting negative energies from different dimensions into our dimension and opening up. Portals which you shouldn't be doing. However, whether or not you can do that in a benevolent way is a completely different question, and that's something which is outside of the conservative Christian cosmovision.
The individual TIs who are being gang-stalked, hyper-gamed, they are beta tests. This is being done to gather data on how to apply it to the masses all at once. They're learning. We're in the process where they're building their entire infrastructure to run the whole human race.
And they have created a digital model of Earth and everybody in it, down to a digital GPS coordinates model, up to even a vertical dimension of 1.5 centimeters, every building, every roadway, everything. And what they want to do is create an Internet of Things where in digital space they know exactly what you're doing in real time.
This is an article from 10 years ago. Sentient World, War Games on the Grandest Scale. The DoD is developing a parallel to planet Earth with billions of individual nodes to reflect every man, woman and child this side of the dividing line between reality and AR.
Humanity will have their brains connected to artificial intelligence, and human consciousness, human thought, human emotion as we've known it will be over, because every thought, every emotional response will come from AI. He who controls AI will then control every human's perceptions directly who is connected to AI. In other words, you'll be a computer terminal on someone else's internet.
They're using two interfaces, like we said, the brain to computer interface. That's the supercomputer. The sophisticated and advanced access scale system downloads all of your, all electromagnetic activity, all these synaptic responses, the electromagnetic emissions of the victim's brain is downloaded at the speed of light. Energy travels at the speed of light, so they can download, upload at the speed of light.
Sure.
Back into a database as they build, as the supercomputer is programmed to build, using various software programs, a cognitive model of your brain.
And what we are trying to do here, your friends and family, this organization, is to use this precious knowledge to build machines that can actually create manipulate and use these parallel realities in the service of this one. We want to grab those parallel realities from this abstract space in which they live and crunch them down into this chip.
To eventually achieve direct behavioral control over you. And then based on, that cognitive model being complete, begin to be able to predict and influence in advance the reference choices of the victim during thought competition. As the victim is formulating his thoughts and preparing to act, the supercomputer already has that persona and all your emotional state downloaded, every vector of your emotional state downloaded, so I can already influence those events in your life in advance and achieve direct behavioral control over you.
Putting in the 5G systems that literally will slowly kill our humanity while they control us as biological androids. They now say we're going to merge the machines. They now say that we are the robots.
Teleoperation allows a human to provide guidance to the robot to move in a way that we find good. Now, let's say I'm a human pilot, Wizard of Ozing the robot. If I wanted to pick something up from the table as a robot, my teleoperator would look down, look at the field of view, look up, look at their hand, move it over, feel the tactile sensors in the hand, close the hand on the object and pick it up. So having something that's a human makes that a lot easier.
Because of my responsibilities in surveillance as a otherwise normal security specialist, I was showed this technology at work. And it was through the perspective, of course, of the camera, and what I was told that it was obvious it was being used through the eyes of the target. So I have seen it, and it is absolutely remarkable. It's just like a first-person, video game or something where you see right through the eyes of the individual.
Now, let's say I'm a human pilot, Wizard of Ozing the robot. I could have an overlay that says this person is distressed or lying or otherwise some kind of useful information that I might not be able to tell, augmented from the machine. So if I was a robot, stood up on stage, and my teleoperating pilot did this, my robot would do that, and now I can look over there, and now I can look over there. So teleoperation is a superpower in helping robots learn.
In fact, the very nature of the research and development program that is going on in Seattle, Washington, and I think by extension what's being done to TIs around the country is very largely geared towards the monitoring of human beings for the specific purpose of recording every aspect of human existence, to monitor our thoughts and to monitor our emotions and our feelings, to inform computer software that is used on robots, that is used on computers themselves, to make them as human-like as possible.
And obviously, computers are better at things than people in lots of different ways. So now imagine, not only can they do everything that a human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them.
In 2003, they launched what's called the AI system, which is a intelligent supercomputer with the intelligence of a human being. In other words, a smart human being, but able to think 10 trillion times faster, with the access to all known knowledge and history, and a complete access to the internet and all of the communication pathway.
So you're dealing with a system of remote neural networks. That's what's targeting you. Okay, remote neural networks, okay, with a will, intellect, and emotion of their own.
Integrated into a package that consolidates them in human form. So everything that's ever been built in the history of AI, you can pack into one of these machines and give that capability to a human-like robot. So the form factor doesn't limit you in using these things. You can still use all of the techniques of modern AI. So if I was a robot, stood up on stage, and my teleoperating pilot did this, my robot would do that, and now I can look over there, and now I can look over there.
As far as I'm aware, it's real time. There may be a second or two delay, but it is as it is happening. They can actually see through the eyes of the target. It's done all remotely. And that is rendered, of course, in essentially real time on a computer screen. And then it is to the point where it's so accurate, you can actually see the individual pores on someone's face, see scars and nicks and so forth. And so you can understand how, if you had several people, for example, that you were able to do this, you can see through their eyes in a room or on a street corner or within an office building, wherever it is. You can get total situational awareness simply by looking through their eyes, and you can see through basically it's like being 3 or 4 or 5 different people all at the same time.
So digital superintelligence has fused with biology intelligence, turning humans into biorobots. If you want to know more, stimulated reality YouTube channel. That's one. Let's go and have a look elsewhere. Target individuals linked to artificial reality like a stimulated game. The NK Ultra control. This is what they do to me. The NK Ultra, the CIA mind control operation going back in history, but also, you know, this didn't stop all those years ago. It's just carried on. Convert transhumanism and the mind control, stop the crime. It's just demonic what's going on. The experimentations, CIA mind control experiments. So, what is the project NK Ultra? Is to split the mind, but I stick to the artificial intelligence subject. Mankind's last invention. Why AI is the most dangerous thing you can imagine right now.
Hey, 42 here. Earlier this year, Facebook was working on a new highly intelligent AI chatbot that could talk to and negotiate with humans in a realistic manner. When one Facebook engineer had the bright idea to take two of these AI bots and let them talk to each other, that's when something unexpected and terrifying happened. The two AIs invented their own language that us humans couldn't understand and began using it to talk to each other. Here's a snippet of what the two bots named Bob and Alice said to each other. Bob said, I can, I, everything else. Alice, balls have zero to me, 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 too. Bob, you, I, everything else. Alice, balls have a balls to me, to me, to me, to me, to me, to me, to me. The Facebook engine. They had invented their own secret code to converse using the power of artificial neural networks. International news soon reported that Facebook forcefully shut down the experiment due to concerns that the AIs were becoming too smart, getting out of control, and to prevent a Skynet situation. This isn't entirely true. Yes, they did shut it down right away, but because they were trying to create an AI that could talk to humans, and if it was going to go and take the liberty to invent its own language, then that wasn't much use, and so the experiment was thus a failure. But, nevertheless, this is still really creepy. As we continue to advance artificial intelligence technology and push the boundaries further and further every year, what happens when they do become self-aware, sentient beings that are more intelligent than humans? Could AI take over the world, and will it be in our lifetimes? Artificial intelligence, the ability for computers to think at a human level and beyond, and to self-replicate and self-improve, is not a dystopian vision of the future. It is here. It is now. It is happening. Most people are completely unaware at the phenomenal rate that our AI systems have improved over the past 5 years, and the trend is only getting steeper and steeper. You may not realize, but you use AI every day. We all do. Virtual assistants such as Google Assistant, Siri, and Alexa are obvious examples of cutting-edge artificial intelligence, but it is also used in many really subtle ways that affect your everyday life. When you see music recommendations on Spotify and film suggestions on Netflix, there is a highly complex computer algorithm behind that, an algorithm that teaches itself with passing time, an AI. This is known as machine learning, and large retailers such as Amazon have been using machine learning algorithms for many years now to predict what you want to buy, perhaps before you even know it yourself. In one infamous case in 2014, American retailer Target stores used artificial intelligence to predict that a teenage girl was pregnant before any of her family members knew, and before she was even sure of it herself. Target's cleverly designed machine learning algorithms had detected that this particular Minnesota teenager's buying habits had changed slightly. Over the past couple of months, she had begun purchasing scent-free soap. Upon seeing his daughter's mail one day, the girl's father stormed into his nearest Target store and said the following to the store manager. "My daughter got this in the mail. She is still in high school, and you are sending her coupons for baby clothes and cribs. Are you trying to encourage her to get pregnant?" A short while later, the store manager received a phone call from the abashed father in which he said, "I've had a talk with my daughter. It turns out there's been some activities in my household that I wasn't completely aware of. She's due in August. I owe you an apology." So, to answer the question, is AI smarter than humans yet? Well, smarter than all of them? No. But smarter than one slightly naive Minnesota father? Absolutely. Moore's law states that every year, the amount of transistors in computer processing units will double. This has held true every single year since Gordon Moore theorized it and the first CPU was invented in 1971. So, while superhuman artificial intelligence may not be among us just yet, many futurists predict that its advent could happen any time within the next 50 years. Some say it could be far sooner than that, in as little as 10 years' time. Some of the most intelligent individuals in the world who deal with futuristic technology every single day have repeatedly warned that AI could be the most dangerous thing we ever create and our greatest ever existential threat. Stephen Hawking has made numerous pleas to the global scientific community to tread carefully with AI or face our own damnation. And Elon Musk is constantly expressing his concerns. In an interview, Musk recently stated that with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the devil.
Yeah.
Bring your business online and start selling with Shopify.
There you go on that one. It's alive, but is it life? Next.
What is it, life? What makes it different from just matter? Everything, living or not, is just chemicals made from atoms. These fish and the water the fish are in are just soups of atoms. But what makes the fish?
You'll get that and go back. What is cybernetics? The hive mind. Hive mind supercomputers. Future computing. Brain-based chips. Sick. Deep dive. IBM. Recreating the human mind in a computer.
Guys, get your name on the sign-up sheet now, because in 10 years, we're all uploading our brains to computers. You do not want to be the one that is last for that. I'm Anthony for D News, and a little while back we talked about how we could tell if our universe was a computer simulation and how we're working on our own computers to simulate our universe. Now that stuff is such a crazy long way off. So what about
That was 8
something
years
simpler?
ago.
What about building a computer simulation of the human brain? When are we going to be able to do that? And what are we going to use it for? Well, one of the biggest projects to reproduce human intelligence is the Blue Brain Project, which was created by the Brain and Mind Institute of the EFPL in Switzerland. Now, what's cool about this project is that it isn't AI like you see in video games or the Turing test. It's not trying to approximate human thought. It's actually trying to physically reconstruct it by simulating all of the individual neurons in the human brain. Now, that takes a lot of computing power because every neuron requires the power of a modern laptop. And here's a fun fact. You have about 60,000 neurons in each of your cortical columns. Cortical columns are about 2 millimeters long, and you have 2 million cortical columns in your brain. So you would need about 120 billion consumer laptops to simulate the human cortex. Now, the Blue Brain Project uses specialized IBM supercomputers. But even with all of that hardware, they are still a long ways off. They're looking to boot up the
Он ползет, да пиздец.
We covered what courtrooms are, and they are actually vessels in dry dock, and you're entering foreign territory, and the judges are supposed to be moving as or acting as fiduciaries, but they're actually taking jurisdiction as the captains of their vessels.
You know what I mean? We need to start raising our swords. I mean, and hey, if you're defensive, put your shield away and raise your sword. Raise your sword today and never put it away.
Okay, also the subject nationwide. So,
Okay, also the
5th of
subject
January
nationwide.
2020. Listen to this.
Without Squarespace, I wouldn't have an online brand.
American individual implies.
Oh my goodness. How day you do. What is the hippity hap?
Let's have a look at this. President Biden's winter plan. Let's have a look. That's in America. Really gave the gas on. Yeah. Not today, the bank. Number 3. Black haired female with red jumper. Ramping up the MK Ultra. Family. Visitors number 3. Please inform. Elect please inform. Family blue car. Blue car. Yeah. Demonic witches. Witches Morlocks. You can't make this up. You have to mark bloody thing now. Just bloody hack and cacking me. Demons. Definite demons.